Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video, I'm going to be going over an overall update on the car market. Before we get into this video, I want to mention a couple things. First off, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. And a lot of the information in today's video comes from Cox Automotive. Let's get into it. I'm a little bit late with the news in today's video, and that's just because I was super busy over the last week, but the Federal Reserve met yet again, and they increased the federal funds rate by another 25 basis points. This now puts the federal funds rate at 5.25 to 5.5%, which is about twice of what is considered a neutral federal funds rate. Now, Cox Automotive states that this has kicked out about 5 to 10% of the car buyer base. That is 5 to 10% of people that would normally buy cars aren't buying cars because of these higher interest rates, and this is having a bigger impact on the used car market as opposed to the new car market. And that's why we are actually finally starting to see some declines in used car retail values, about a 3% decline, and we've seen those huge declines with the wholesale side of things, over 10% decline at this point. But something to note is that the used car market might stabilize soon because rates have already hit their peak. The peak was back in March. The average used car rate back then was 14%, whereas now it's in that 13.6% range, which is still high, but they're not going up anymore. Now, the next thing to dive into is going to be rates with the new car market side of things. They've actually slightly increased. They're now at 9.2% for the average new car interest rate, which is kind of crazy because, we still have some automakers obviously releasing cemented rates where you can get 1.99, 2.99%. But if you just go through a traditional bank or credit union, you're going to be paying close to 10% on average with a new car interest rate. And so Cox Automotive thinks that this could potentially, start dampening some of the, wanting to buy new cars because of the high interest rates. But at the same time, there hasn't been a big enough pullback from new cars at this point. The new car market, again, is going to see more sales this year compared to what we saw last year. And so, it's just kind of a matter of time to see exactly what happens. And that's kind of where I want to dive into, my personal opinion on this whole situation with the rate changes and with everything that's happening in the automotive market. So first off, on the used car side of things, I don't think that it's just the rates that are damping, people's want to buy used cars. I've kind of talked about this on the channel. So a lot of cars that are being sent to auction are just complete junk. And so obviously people don't want anything to have to do with those cars. They're the worst examples. And that's a large portion of the used car market. There's just not a lot of availability, but the availability that is there, a lot of it's junk. Now the cars that are in good condition, they're the best examples. It seems like they're just really nice, and so they're going for all the money. And so unless you are a wealthier buyer, it's you don't really have access to that. And so I think that is also having a large impact on the overall used car market. And so I believe that we're going to continue to see this trend where there are certain cars in certain categories that are going to take big value hits, but the cars that are in good condition and are slightly more desirable models are still going to be selling for all of the money. So it's just going to be kind of a case-by-case basis, and that's just typically how the used car market functions. And something else in the report is Cox Automotive stated that they think the used car market is going to be pretty stable moving forward. There's going to be some ups and downs, but it's going to remain pretty stable. And I think that I kind of agree with that, again, based on what I have seen so far. Now, with the new car market, this is where things get a little bit more complicated. So, demand is finally starting to be met across the board with new cars. There are still some manufacturers that are pretty constrained, but if you look across the board, the day supply number has, slowly risen over the course of the last year. It's kind of stabilized at this point, but I think that we are about to kind of break the dam, so to speak, with that day supply number, because you have a lot of automakers that are deciding to not hold back, right? Toyota is a great example. So over the course of the pandemic, they struggled with supply, and now that supply has improved for them where they're able to build more cars, they are not going to arbitrarily limit supply, because that's something that, GM did, for example. They idled plants so they could keep their supply at a certain range, so they had pricing power, so they could be more profitable as a company. This is something that we've seen over the course of the last 6 months. I'll have to kind of make a whole dedicated video to this, but automakers basically focusing on profitability over focusing on just trying to move metal. And it sounds like automakers like Toyota have no interest in that whatsoever. They are just going to build as many cars as they can And so when these other automakers start to lose market share to automakers like Toyota, and Tesla is another good example where they're just pumping out as many cars as they can, and they are, Tesla's discounting their cars a lot. Toyota hasn't increased their prices nearly as much as what you see with other automakers. Then that is going to, I think, kind of bleed over into the other automakers where they're going to be like, okay, we can't keep losing market share. We can't do this. Like, we need to get these customers back. And so they're going to ramp up production, and then we're going to see a bunch of vehicles going to the market. We're going to see much bigger discounts. Now, I don't know how long it's going to take for this to happen. My guess, 6 to 12, maybe 18 months. But I think that this is going to be the gradual change over the course of the next year to put the car market in a place where new cars not only have big discounts, but there's massive availability. We'll see you.